From now until the 14th, my code ESPRESSO gets you 30% off your entire order at gfuel.com. If you want to check out a new flavor, grab a restock, or just try it out, be sure to use code ESPRESSO for 30% off your order. Link in the description below. Earlier this week, Operation Apocalypse Z kicked off for Black Ops 4 on PlayStation 4 and is coming up in just a couple of days here for Xbox One and PC users. Though, while we're in that time of waiting for you guys and while players may be still grinding out some tiers on PlayStation 4, I want to bring you guys some tips here on how you can best manage and be as efficient as possible in ranking up your tiers. While we don't have a specific weapon granted at tier 40, that max level of a contraband stream, of course, it will grant you a ranged weapon that you do not have, so that's enticing no less. So we're going to talk about how to get there as fast as possible. But before we get into it, if you guys want to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 4 and all things Call of Duty, we do daily content here on the channel, so if you're interested in any updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff, maybe considering that subscribe button for that extra added notification. And with 63% of viewers not subscribed, the content will still be here, but if you guys want to stay up to date on a regular basis, that's the best way to do it, and the option is there. But anyways, let's jump into the tips. Let's start out with probably what you guys are most interested in, MP. Multiplayer gameplay is probably what a lot of you guys play in Black Ops 4, and the biggest key part here with this is making sure that you pick the right game modes. As you guys know by now probably, tier progression is based solely on in-game playtime. That means actually playing the game, things like half times, things like loading into the game, things like pre-game lobbies, things like create a class outside of that, does not count towards your tier progression. So you want to be in-game as much as possible. And so therefore the best modes like this are the objective-based game modes, and mostly the longer round-based game modes, and also ones that have multiple rounds, mostly more than 2 rounds in them. The best ones that come to my mind here when we talk about this is Safeguard, Control, and Domination. Now, of course, some of these playlists may not have as many players in them as others, Domination probably being the most popular out of this, Safeguard probably being the least popular out of these 3, but they all work tremendously well. Things like Domination will last you a guaranteed 10 to 12 minutes of in-game playtime. Depending on how you do, of course, you could back out or you could stay the entire time. Sometimes lobbies have that effect on you where you just don't want to play there anymore, but you're guaranteed that 10 to 12 minutes if you end up playing the entire time, sometimes even more. If you end up having the ability to come back from, say, a 50 or 75 or even 100 point plus deficit, whenever you turn the tides of that, that's obviously going to keep that match going longer than normal. Control, you end up having the ability to push overtimes, in which that can end up adding a few more extra minutes onto there as well. And even in Safeguard, you end up having the ability to push overtime, which will then grant you 15 plus minutes per game. That's all in-game time that then goes towards that tier progression. Each tier is roughly about 1 hour of in-game playtime to complete, so of course the longer game modes equal less games you actually have to play, and the more efficient your time is spent, not necessarily in create a class, in pre-game lobbies, loading into the game, half times, and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you pick these objective game modes. How you do in them is completely irrelevant, so you just want to be able to pick the ones that last the absolute longest. When you play solo, this might be a little tricky, but if you end up playing with a party of 2, 3, 4, upwards of a full 5 or 6 man party, of course, that is much easier then to control and dictate the outcome and how much time you have in game, simply because you can easily control the flow of that game. Next tip I want to talk about is something that primarily deals around MP. It doesn't necessarily have to though, and it's something a little more trivial that you might not necessarily ever consider, and it's something that only happens once every so often. But that being the Call of Duty companion app and being able to utilize this to your advantage. If you guys didn't know, the Call of Duty companion app not only shows you things like your leaderboard stats and other cool little in-depth things you might not necessarily notice about your game, but it also allows you to end up joining a squad. Now, a squad can contain up to 20 players. That can be either your friends or you can join random squads, but whenever you end up doing this, it will allow you to take advantage of the objectives, the ops that are available at that current point. And there's current objectives that last about a week's time here with this. The current one this week is to get 50 combined wins in Domination, and that's through, again, all 20 players working towards that one common goal. So you don't necessarily have to play Domination to do this. You could complete it without even touching Domination, so long as other people in your squad end up completing it. I know that pretty much every single reward that I've gotten, I don't think that I've gone for this. It's because I've had other people in my squad carry me to it, because most of them, again, do revolve around MP, and primarily I do play a lot of Blackout. But the biggest part is that they're pretty simple, so they're relatively relatively common tasks that you could complete without even noticing. But the rewards usually bounce back and forth between things like black market tier skips and also bundle crates as of recently. The very first one we ever ended up getting was an exclusive tag called BRIBE, which was only available through the ops in the companion app. But again, I don't care about stickers all that much, but things like black market bundle crates are always good, of course, because that's a free 3-item reserve crate you get. Plus, you also end up having those tier skips, which play directly into what we're talking about now with this. All you got to do again is join that squad, take a look at the objective. If you end up completing it, you can then redeem it on the companion app and it will automatically apply to your linked account. So that's something that, again, doesn't really take all that much and kind of gives you some free tiers every so often. Now, talking about tiers and tier skips in particular, you want to make sure that you take advantage of the tier skips. Recently, we ended up seeing the introduction of contracts, which did slightly alter how they work for zombies, which we've talked about beforehand, taking the zombies approach and doing the 2-tier skips daily. What you end up doing here at this one, because it's now been switched to the daily contract, not necessarily the daily calling, though one could argue it's relatively the same thing, just arguing semantics back and forth with it, but it is something where you end up getting a tier skip for your first merit earned in Blackout, your first win in MP, or by reaching round 15 in zombies every single day. So by taking that into account, you can end up playing zombies and getting that tier 15, but also you could bang out whatever the daily contract is as well. Sometimes this will teeter on something that's pretty easy for all players, sometimes a little more challenging, but relatively they take anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes to complete. And then that also knocks out 2 in 1 game. 2 tier skips for simply playing that 30 minutes. And again, if you compare to say how long a regular tier skip takes, that's an hour of in-game playtime. But you knocked out 2 within your first 30 to 45 minutes. The one thing though to be said along with this is that zombies does not track tier progression outside of that daily contract and that round 15 daily tier skip. So once you complete one or both of those, get on out of there, jump over to MP or Blackout so you can continue that progression in something that will then actually track for your time put into the game. Otherwise, you're just putting time in, which is totally fine. You may tremendously enjoy zombies, to which there's nothing wrong with that, but just know that you won't be getting any tier progression outside of those 2 tier skips. Now, if you were to jump over into another mode, the biggest one here, the 4th one I want to talk about today, is that of, well, Blackout. To me, Blackout is probably the best way to end up getting tier progression, because whenever you play a regular match of Blackout on the standard map, it'll take you, if you can make it to the end, to be Final 5, Final 3, or even the Lone Survivor with you just yourself or with your squad. It will take anywhere from 20 to 23 minutes of in-game playtime. That's quite a lot of time here, because when you do the math, obviously, if you keep consistently doing that, it takes you less than 3 games to get a full tier out of that. So, of course, when you compare it to any other game mode, that is the most time in-game spent outside of any other offering. Now, of course, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed, because Blackout is completely contingent on RNG, and so therefore you could land one game, find absolutely amazing loot, get all kitted up, get ready for mid and late game, win the game, but then drop into your next one and die immediately because somebody finds a shotgun and you have nothing. It's really all dependent on luck at that point, but of course, if you end up playing it, you can play it to your advantage, so you don't have as much contention early game. You can make it to late game and then strategically can play for the win there, or just play for the playtime, not even necessarily the win. That's been something that's probably worked the most for me. Granted, it does help that I have a very good squad, at least I think we're really good, in which we do win consistently and we stay in game a lot like that, so I'm able to breeze through even outside of my tier skips, even outside of those bonuses from the COD companion app and things like that. So it all starts to compound together once you end up stringing those wins or staying alive long enough together. So that's definitely, I think, in terms of efficiency, the best way to utilize your time, but also it might not be the best for everybody. It's all dependent on how you come across and play the game yourself. The final thing that I will say, though, that does help, though it's not necessarily something I'm too fond of, is that of the special orders. The special orders in the shop are usually items of, say, a camo or a mastercraft or something like that, a Blackout character, a uniform, or sometimes even some throwback stuff to deals or air quote deals that we've seen before. We saw recently that we had the Fall Firearms bundle in the Days of Summer and Operation Spectre Rising special orders, though Of course, not necessarily a deal, but I digress. That also, every single one offers a 5% tier boost bonus for that, so that eventually you can end up getting to 5 items that'll stack up to a 25% tier boost, meaning that every single tier going forward after that, it's going to take up to only 45 minutes instead of the full hour. While at the beginning of the operation, when there's only one thing on offer, it doesn't seem like a whole lot that will help you out. Once those start to compound, you will start to notice a difference between now and whenever they end up compounding to be that 25% tier boost, if there are enough things that you end up enjoying and feel are worth the money. Truthfully, I don't think that I've ever gotten past 15% on an operation. What you find of value could be completely different than what I find of value, but personally, I've never even gotten up to that 25% with that tier boost. But anyways, those are my 5 biggest tips here in which you can get the tiers done as efficiently as possible, utilize that precious time of yours in the best ways available within Black Ops 4 so that you can eventually get to that tier 40 of this new contraband stream and get that ultra weapon bribe for a chance at whatever weapon you want. Of course, along the way, you'll end up getting that new Koshka Mastercraft, and the nice part is that you do have ample amount of time here comparable to what we've seen beforehand. It's only 40 tiers, but the event itself is 28 days, so that means that you can pretty much get just about the entirety of this done by simply doing your daily tier skips. So stick with it, stay vigilant, put in some time, and you'll definitely be able to do it without putting a single penny into the game. That said, that's what we're gonna wrap it up though, so hopefully you enjoyed the video, hopefully this helped you out in some way, shape, or form, and can be a little insightful. But if you enjoyed the video though, make sure to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 4 and all things Call of Duty, updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered here on the channel, so if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube, for I can live on both those. So you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But other than that, out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.